Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know.
Okay, hola, bon dia. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show special this Sunday morning. We're into February, folks, of 2026. It's the 1st of February, 2026. I'm back here this morning just to check in, see if at all possible, of course, if people do have an internet connection, to see if you're okay, and deal, of course, in a sort of triage sort of way, who needs help in our community, or friends of the community, whoever, if we can be in some way helpful in the aftermath of Storm Kristin. Do let us know, first and foremost. Any emergencies, any difficulties among the community. We're getting a sense of who's been affected and how they can be helped on a community basis, a Good Morning Portugal and Portugal Club community basis. And of course, there's a thread over at the Portugal Club where you can add things and let us know how you're doing. And of course, another new thread as well about preparedness. An interesting conversation developing about equipment, Blue Etties, and there was another name that came up. I've been looking back into BioLite products that I was very keen on before I came to Portugal in the UK. So we're doing our best basically to be helpful, assessing what's an absolute emergency and seeing if we can help on that basis. And sharing this morning a special briefing from Portugal Decoded, very helpful. Things are emerging in my hometown. We now have a GoFundMe, which has been very well subscribed. People really do want to help, and it's a matter of finding out how. For me, basically, I was doing my work experience in the town in San Martino de Porto yesterday, all day, and I just decided to take my broom, a pair of gloves, and a rag to wipe down the windows, basically, and just swept up a bit around where I was based yesterday. So I think if you just rock up with a broom in your locality, it's going to be fairly obvious how to muck in and get involved. Good morning to you, Jackie. I'm guessing you're in the UK. Thoughts, love, and prayers to anyone affected by the storm. Thank you, Jackie. Bon dia, Pete. Good to see you this morning. And Di has heart surgery in Coimbra on Tuesday, but at the moment they may be evacuating the whole. Seriously, Pete, evacuating all of Coimbra as the dam above it is totally full. And we're due lots of rain tonight. Now, I'm not. Are you talking about the hospital? This is news to me. And occasionally you do share a bit of a joke with us, a bit of sort of dark humor to lighten the mood. Have you got any more on this, Pete, to furnish this very serious suggestion here? The evacuation of Coimbra. That's something that I do think we need to distinguish before we're finished this morning. And please do use the comments to share anything that is useful with our community here this morning, as we'll be here, I don't know, maybe about 30 minutes, just to be a bit of a focal point for anyone who's up. I mean, sensibly, a lot of people will still be in bed, right? It's mild here in this part of Portugal anyway. More rain is affected, as Pete is pointing out there. And the forecast is for more rain this evening. In fact, a storm situation, I believe, coming later this evening and worsening into the early hours of the morning. I'll attempt to be more specific on that, but I think that's a useful preparation. That was the government's recommendation, is to not drop your guard, stay at home and prepare for more rain and a storm coming in. Yes, thank you. We'll talk about Starlink as well. I tried to order my Starlink yesterday. I had a processing problem, but it looks like this was our own business account, a card that we use. It's hard to validate it online, but enough of my personal little problems with that. Suffice to say, you can get Starlink set up for €20, I think, for the home installation model, and then €29 a month thereafter, which seems like very good value and a good backup to have. I'd rather have the conversation about whether or not you're supporting Elon Musk on a different occasion, folks. I think that's pretty obvious to everyone, isn't it? And that often comes up in conversations about Starlink. Why would you support Elon Musk? Let's not have that conversation here. By all means, let's have it elsewhere. But, I think at the moment, to have a backup certainly for internet on Starlink would be a very good idea. And you can get into that for €20 plus a further €29 a month thereafter as your monthly fee. I mean, lots of other plans are available, but that's the one that they seem to be selling to get you started, including, I believe, a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So if it doesn't work where you are, actually, let me start with that because it's quite a basic and useful matter to deal with, staying connected, because there are people still who aren't connected with electricity or internet. And an interesting point that's come through from Michael Whitby, who you'll know if you ever watched the Wine Club show, their house has had some serious damage, and where they are, there is still a problem with the internet. And he was making a point. I'll share it with you. But just to give you the how you do this Starlink connection, you click basically on where you are in Portugal on the map. It will tell you if it's available or not. For example, if I put this on the screen, very straightforward matter. Lisbon, Portugal, and it will tell you if there is availability there, which of course there is in Lisbon, and then how to buy €20 and 29 thereafter, as you can see on your screen. I will put a link to that for you in the chat if you just want to go for that. I don't think I need to give you. I think if I put that whole order in there, you'll be buying mine for me. Let me just put that into the chat. Just the first bit you need. A very straightforward, does what it says on the tin, starlink.com. Okay, so there you go. That's for you in the chat. Very straightforward. And that would appear to be the main and obvious alternative to the systems that are available in the internet establishment, the likes of Vodafone and Mayo. Starlink, the big new competitor, and fairly easy to get started with. And it doesn't look like you've got a 24-month contract. I don't know, actually. I don't know on that. I know you've got a 30-day money back, full money back warrant guarantee. And I've just signed Vodafone for 2 years. That's how the contracts tend to work. You've got 2 years once you're in, and a lot more than 29 a month. I think. Well, depends. There's the new one, isn't there? Digi, I think, which is cheaper than that, but that uses the standard system. And that's with Starlink. That's what we're getting away from, is a totally different way to connect to the internet. And we'll come back to that problem of how internet hasn't been restored in some places. And you'd think, hold on, that's quite an omission. Why is there no backup on such an important system? And thank you very much, Pete. The €20 deal seems quite poor, as the normal system is €40 a month, and you get much higher speeds and priority, whereas the mini will still be better than local providers, but slow when you need it. I think, Pete, that €20 is for the residential. Oh, residential light. Okay, so there's residential and residential light. 40 gives you. Okay, so check that out. When you go to starlink.com, check out the difference between 29. That I don't think that's referring to the size of the. I was going to call it a dish, whatever it is that you can see in the picture there. I think that's the consumption package rather than the equipment. But check it out for yourself. It is 29 or €40 for Starlink at starlink.com. And of course, if you do get it, let us know what it's like and what that process was like to make that easier for others. So we have our own 100th monkey situation, as it were. Get Starlink proper, not mini. If electricity goes down, plug it into a generator. Get a decent solar system to run basics you need for life. Yeah, that's happening. We're definitely doing that. That's a given, Jackie, that we do that. So there we go. That's our bit of Starlink chat this morning. Bigger picture then. Let's have a look at the special briefing from Portugal Decoded. Distracted by Starlink there. Portugal Decoding special briefing. Here we go. How you can help. Big picture stuff. How you can help. Open access, practical guide. They're calling it open access because it is a Substack subscription service. You can upgrade to paid. This was issued free yesterday. Practical guide with verified collection points, urgent needs, and volunteering options across central Portugal, along with our guide to storm preparedness. Very good. Let's start here this morning then. Portugal Decoded, and of course, let me put the link to it. Should you want to subscribe or support the team at Portugal Decoded. Let's have a look then at this. Got a lot of tabs open. Leria still remains, I think, the epicenter of concern and care, and you can see, obviously, the damage from the picture there. Donations are being collected at Pusos Pavilion and the headquarters of Caritas Diocesana de Leria. Urgently needed bottled water, non-perishable food, hygiene products, tarpaulins, and plastic sheeting, as you might imagine. Roof protection materials, construction supplies, gloves, and generators. Volunteers can join the Reguer Leria action. I'll put that link. That looks quite crucial there as well. Let me do. Okay, that's a massive link. If I just copy and paste it, but that's a Facebook. Okay, that's a massive link there. If you, what I'll do is I'll just type in the name of the place, and you can find that for yourself without putting in a massive link into the chat there. So Reerguer, I don't forgive my pronunciation, but that's somewhere where you can get involved in Leria. Meeting point yesterday. Okay, so the people were gathering at the municipal stadium. I don't know what's available today. Marini Grand, donations at the Neri Capuccio Pavilion. Same sorts of products are needed: water, non-perishable food, hygiene products, tarpaulins, mattresses, blankets, adult and children's clothing. At the municipal yard, volunteers in construction and cleaning materials are also being coordinated, including tiles, cement, tools, gloves, and waterproof sheets. Social support office is operating with civil protection there, and so on and so forth. Pombal, Figueiras de Vinhos, where we know we have people in need over there. Coimbra and Orang, similar picture, similar things are needed. There is an identified meeting point in all of these. You have the link in the chat. Helping from other cities, authorities in Lisbon, Porto, and Coimbra, as we mentioned yesterday, have issued an urgent call for blood donors. And Linda Velha, Matosinhos, Oliveira de Almazais as well. So these centres for collection of needed items are popping up all over the country. Another mention then, of course, for Tempestad SOS. That seems to have come through as a very useful resource as well, being reiterated here at the Portugal, among the Portugal Decoded resources. And the advice from Portugal Decoded: national authorities warned late on Friday that a new depression is expected from Sunday, in terms of weather, that is, not least, of course, the Mental Health Association, with what's going on in Portugal. Now, we need to keep our spirits up on every front, it would appear, bringing a very wet week and increasing the risk of flooding in several parts of the country. So the weather situation is not helping and worsening this evening here on the 1st of February. Meteorologist Nuno Lopes from the IPMA said the spell would not be as violent as Kristin, thankfully. The meteorological bomb, as it's been described, he described as the largest storm in almost a century, but stressed that daily rainfall is forecast across virtually the entire territory after a brief lull on Saturday. And it was a brief and lovely lull. Some sunshine yesterday, offering the sense of drying things out a bit and a bit of respite from the continuous rain that we've been experiencing. And I'm heard suggestions that we're in for another couple of weeks of rain as well, as well as this, I don't know, it's not been named yet, but another depression system coming in for this evening, Sunday evening, and into the early hours of Monday. He also warned that some areas could exceed 160 millimeters of accumulated rainfall over the week. In meteorological terms, that's a chuffing lot, adding that in this context, a yellow warning becomes as serious as an orange one. That's an interesting point to make. Senor Lopes from IPMA, alongside heavy rain, the forecast also includes rough seas, thunderstorms, strong winds, and the return of snow to higher ground, including the Serra da Estrela. Please don't go up there. Wait for pictures to emerge from people. I think the last thing the emergency services need is to be recovering sightseers from the Serra da Estrela at the moment. I suspect it will be closed anyway. Here's our previous infographic on how to prepare for a storm. Very good work. Stay at home and check your rainwater drainage systems, unless, of course, there's an absolute emergency and you need to evacuate your home, or you're told to do so. Check your rainwater drainage systems and ensure water flows freely by removing debris and other objects that could be swept away or clog gutters or cause flooding. If you have a yard or garden, check for trees or objects at risk being blown away by strong winds. Take preventative steps like pruning unstable branches or securing garden furniture and lightweight items on balconies and outdoor areas. If you've got a holiday home with an outdoor area or balcony, perhaps you can alert the people who are key holders, because that was happening, I think, certainly in my town and others, where people have holiday homes with their sun loungers out on the balconies or whatever. They weren't able to get, excuse me a minute, they weren't able to get to their apartments to clear the decks, literally. So maybe you can arrange for that. Inspect and secure or remove loose outdoor items from clotheslines and flower pots to larger structures. From those smaller items to larger structures like scaffolding or signs. Avoid unnecessary trips if going out on the street. That's journeys as well as physical tripping over. Stay cautious near wooded areas due to falling branches or trees. And I know a lot of this is very obvious, but actually people are quite, I don't know what the word is at the moment, sort of traumatized. So it's definitely worth reiterating these things. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But, little reminders, I don't think are a bad thing. If going out, stay cautious near wooded areas due to falling branches or trees. Park away from trees or unstable structures if possible. This is what happens when people get tired. They forget, don't they? And do silly things. Rough seas are a key feature of many depressions. Avoid the coast, especially flood-prone areas, and resist the urge to watch the waves close up. Nazare, we're talking to you. And Grant McNamara issued a very heartfelt and interesting message. No surfing, keep away from Nazare at the moment. At sea, common sense, avoid sea-related activities like fishing, water sports, or seaside walks, and don't park near the shoreline. On the road, if you must drive, adopt a defensive driving style, reduce your speed, and watch out for potential water pooling on roadways. Yeah, driving at high speed into gathered water obviously can be disastrous as well. Go steady, basically. Do not attempt to cross flooded areas to avoid being swept away or your vehicle being dragged into open manholes or pavement holes. You don't know what's under the water, do you? And again, if you get stuck there, somebody has to come and help you. And that means they're not helping someone else, perhaps in more need and in a situation which could have been avoided. Turn around and take a detour to stay safe. Stay indoors if possible. Move animals, agricultural and industrial equipment, vehicles and other belongings away from areas near water courses. And of course, the water courses and flooding are increasing. So, check again. It's a changing situation. The water courses that are prone to flooding, relocating your animals to safer locations. If an accident occurs near you, in case of accident, number 10 there, do not put yourself at risk. Contact the fire department, the GNL, the National Republican Guard, or Civil Protection Services. Emergency number, you should know it by now. 112, available 24 hours every day. 112 is the emergency number here in Portugal. Well done, Portugal Decoded. Thank you very much indeed for that. So let's move on and see who's joined us since we began this morning on this special live stream. We'll be here at 8 o'clock every morning whilst we've still got electricity and power to do so. And yes, the electricity is coming on and off. I'm guessing that when we have a little minimal brief outage, as we've experienced in the last 24 hours since the power has been back on in a meaningful way here in São Martinho de Porto, there's the occasional flicker. Now, the lighting I use in the studio here, there's a telltale sign that whenever the power goes off, when it comes back on again, it switches on these lights automatically. So the power is definitely on and off because the lights were on when I came in to this room this morning. So they are flickering on and off. And I imagine it's a bit like when you isolate your own home to do some work. Perhaps they're switching the systems off so that they can do some work or connect things behind the scenes. And then it's back on within minutes. So be prepared for that as well. There are continued smaller outages in the places where it appears that the supply has, generally speaking, been reinstated. It's patchy. No jokes to worry about today. The details are updated on the link above, but we got the info from Safe Communities Portugal. Okay, that's a good shout, Pete. Thank you for that. We will pop over there actually and take a look at Safe Communities Portugal. Generally speaking, the best place to find them is on Facebook, isn't it? But I think they have their own website as well. So thanks for that, Pete. Safe Communities Portugal. We'll take a look at what they're advising this morning. Okay, yeah, and I was going to mention this. They're all over it. The landslide on the A24, if you're thinking of going anywhere near the A24 in Lamego, in the Viseu district, a landslide warning there. They're also listing, yes, time for prevention. I'll look at that, actually, because they've just briefed less than an hour ago. Thank you, Pete, for that reminder there of Safe Communities Portugal. That's well worth subscribing to. Not a lot, actually, over at the Portugal News. The Portugal Resident front page is worth a look. I seem to get most of my weather prompts from X, formerly Twitter. There is a little bit of good news over at Bluetti. If you're over 60, I think this is one of the first age-related discounts I've claimed, actually, since becoming 60. They're giving 5% off. Bluetti giving 5% off if you're an old giffer over 60, or if you're a student and you do a very quick online process. And if you're a satisfied Bluetti user, let us know which of those you would recommend or use. There's definitely, there's quite high pressure selling on their website, but you can get 5% off, and you can agree to their privacy policy in terms of service as soon as you arrive at the site. My goodness. So that, if you're buying a $2,000 power pack, 5% off is worthwhile. Is it not? So we'll take a quick look at Bluetti. And another system or another make that was recommended by a friend in the United States as well. Thanks, Pete. Excellent resource on Facebook. Well said. Bon dia, you lovely gumpers. What can we do in the US to help? Well, GoFundMe's are popping up. Definitely, that's popped up. They had a $7,000 target, and they've easily reached that. A lot of love for San Martino de Porto, but maybe OLP. Search for the place you particularly love and want to help in Portugal. That would be a good place to start. Now that things have calmed down a little bit for some people, and not everyone by any means, there are still people without power here in Portugal, and damage to repair. So it's still a live situation for some people. And as the media spotlight moves on, as it inevitably does, there's still a lot to do here in the aftermath of the worst storm that most people can remember. And that's an interesting point, actually. Whenever I've talked about storms and the weather we've been having in the last couple of years, Portuguese people, some will say, yeah, it's just normal this time of year, and others will say, oh no, it's just really unusual. And you can't get a sort of definitive answer. I don't know anyone who I've spoken to in the wake of Storm Kristin who hasn't said, I've never known anything like it. This is the worst storm in living memory, and certainly being branded as that in the media. At this moment, thank you, Pete. Calmly, we have to imagine that next week, when we have a lot of rain, the worst case scenario could happen. We don't know where, so we have to keep an eye on it and monitor it. She added, emphasizing, this is the Minister for the Interior. A rather unfortunate demeanor she has, not sort of bold, certainly the antithesis of bold leadership. She looks like a scared little creature. This lady who's been unavailable, it would have seemed for a while. If that's who this quote is from, it's not accredited. Oh, from a mayor. The mayor of, I beg your pardon, I'm moaning about the wrong person here. Mayor of Coimbra, and thanks, Pete, emphasizing that firefighters will be constantly watching the entire structure to see if there are any signs of trouble. Which structure, though, are we talking about there, and the worst case scenario? Let's get that a little bit better defined. Bon dia, Gumpers from the coach in the UK. Hope you're all surviving okay. Glad I've spent the last week in the Dolomites and not in PT. Impeccable timing from that possible Bond, who is Colin Ross Jones. Would that be the first Welsh James Bond? Not in Portugal. Take care, everyone. I'm thinking of you. Thanks, coach. If I've missed something you said, sorry, but could you repeat it? Yeah, of course. Be careful cleaning up. Leria had over 400. No way. 400 injuries from people who hurt themselves when cleaning. My goodness. In all honesty, I would avoid clearing up. Yeah, I was thinking that as I was sweeping up sand yesterday and wiping the windows, Pete, I was thinking, is this worthwhile? And I think if you don't go to too much trouble, or certainly don't put yourself in danger, as you've pointed out there, Psychologically, it helps to be among people who are tidying up. It has, even though it might be for naught, as it were, and futile with another storm coming in tonight. It did feel good to be doing it. I'll be honest, and to be involved in what was going on and taking care of the situation. So I take your point. In all honesty, I would avoid clearing up until at least Monday morning, as the dam and river breaches expected could cause further damage. No dam runoffs that can be open to the river. They're open. We have storm defences around San Martin de Porto. They've been flooded. Certainly, they were flooded at Christmas and of last year. And they are full again. The fields are full of water. It's making for the most extraordinary photographs, aerial photographs of flooded fields, which have been underwater, it seems, for weeks now. Welsh, Jackie, they've already opened them up. And yeah, dams are completely full and at risk of breach, a problem we're not used to, not just in Coimbra. Villages downriver are already badly flooded. So yeah, that's been taken care of. And we're just getting water upon water. George Lazenby was Welsh. Okay, he's where the Irish, where the Welshmen eat cheese carefully. It's his brother was my neighbour. There you go. Of course, there's always a Welsh. Whenever you say anything, there's always been a Welsh one of them, hasn't there? Somewhere. Okay, thank you for that, Jackie. Where were we going to go next? I wonder. Was it Blue Etties? Was it the preparedness kit? I think it could be. Actually, before I go there, let me go to my thread over. I did post a couple of things before we start talking about the preparedness and the kit that it's quite obvious, is it not, that we should have that? Who's that trying to join us now? Okay. Let me come back to the thread that I'm talking about. Not that one. We'll go there in just a minute. Let's have a look at the Kristin update. There are a couple of things I added. Let's make sure they're looked at this morning. Yeah, Portugal flood risk. No change here then. Weather advisory on X. Intense heavy rain will affect Western Iberia next Monday. Is their forecast. It will be particularly strong in Portugal. This is all due to the Azores high being weaker and displaced, pulling the low pressure area and the rain southward, resulting in eventual floods. And you can see the Iberian Peninsula made out there dark green for enhanced flood risk in Portugal. A fairly straightforward case there. We've looked at the special briefing. That's also a link there now. Oh, yeah, and a point from the Whitbys. Thanks, Carl. A pity that part of the plan isn't for cell phone and internet. No providers to A, have stronger infrastructure, and B, are required to have standby generation at every major tower facility. So the point being made here is that where you see the big towers, where previously, if you were driving past them, you think, oh, great, I'll get a good signal here. Those huge towers that are sending out the 5G or whatever, or all the comms systems, pumping it out, they've been hit by the outage, so they can't power up and do their thing, and there doesn't seem to be any backup power there. This, considering that hardly anyone has landlines, which B, have one as part of our Mayo plan, but it has a handset that requires a charging base, which couldn't provide a charge for 60 hours without power. Yes. Now, note to self here, I'm going to put a wired landline back in. So you would think, wouldn't you, the wired landline is fairly bulletproof, stormproof. That will be one way for foreigners to call home to let them know you're okay. I'm going to get a corded phone. I don't even know where to plug it in. I can't see it, but we'll find out. We'll find out how to do that. I think it's time to have the backup of a corded landline and not a snazzy electric one. They're a pain anyway, aren't they? Often those roaming phones. In an emergency, I think you can get to your. It might be worth having, let's put it that way, a corded phone and not relying on the wireless cordless phone around the house. Do you remember when those were just the most amazing science fiction? You weren't tied to the coil that you saw in American movies of people wandering around a kitchen on a really long cable, a coiled one, or lying in the hallway with their feet up against the wall, twizzling the cable. We're going back to those days in an emergency. Having the Portuguese philosophy of just wait a bit doesn't help when you can't contact providers. Our neighbour who needs special services tried. I think that's probably 112, isn't it? On her phone, no response. Okay. I'm not sure what you mean there. There's a few typos in there, but we get the basic point. No backup on the towers, and it's worth, I think, looking at least trying it, having the cabled phone, the corded phone, the traditional landline as a backup in these situations. And yes, the forward trajectory, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm saying it out loud now, it's not as if when this is over, this might not happen again, folks. I think we do need to seriously prepare for similar situations, whatever their cause, because the Apagao, possibly weather related, there was a theory about that, wasn't there? But infrastructure's failing, the scale we're operating at, and some of the infrastructure being ancient and being held together by gaffer tape and cable ties in the background, and all sorts of things going on in the world. I know for some of you, I don't need to overplay this point, but yeah, get prepared. Have your own resilience and backup systems in the face of the future. All right, is there anything that's coming through that's useful there? Okay. Yeah, all right, so let's chat a bit more then. There is a new thread over at the Portugal Club, and any intel you've got here, gratefully received on your experiences, any deals around at the moment, what you're doing with regard to off-grid / preparedness, equipment research, recommendations, etc., etc. We've talked about Starlink already. If you've only just joined us at the beginning of this stream, which we're doing at 8 o'clock, checking in mornings, 8 o'clock at the moment in the current situation. Some people finding this useful, so I'm glad to have done this. And I've got a selfish reason as well. It's quite complicated finding out what the good things are to buy. People obviously, recommend the thing they've got because if they're happy with it and they've made their choice. So new names come up like solar jackery, which sounds like something you shouldn't be doing whilst you're trying to stay safe. A bit of solar jackery. I use a solar jackery 3000. That'll keep you running. Thank you very much, Shelley. We lived with Starlink for 3 years before knowing that the owner was okay. Let's stay out of that for the time being. It's time and a place for that. Yeah, that thing's coming through there, and I must add myself the fact that Bluetti, who seem to be, let's have a look at their website. What they seem to be doing at the very least is offering you a 5% discount if you're over 60, which I think some of you might be, only just, of course. But 5% off at Bluetti at the moment. Which of these, if you have this, what would you recommend? You've got these great big home backup systems, which suggest uninterrupted. Now, this is good, isn't it? If you've got a system that offers you uninterrupted backup, that might mean that your PC will keep running. There are these incredible response times on some of these generators or sort of off-grid power packs that as soon as they sense an outage, they just power up. And obviously you'd have to have the rest of your house connected to it to pick up the power up that comes that is your off-grid solution. But that's what they're suggesting here. So some incredible stuff going up to a few grand's worth. And the basic, the portable, which a lot of people swear by, I think we're looking at around 800 euros, aren't we? And they're boasting about they've got a new casing. I guess that's the least of a lot of people's worries at the moment, but a eco casing as well, plastic, a bioplastic, whatever that is. But there you go. Look, anything right up to about £1,000 with a solar panel, 200 watts there, or your basic 100-watt solar generator there for 800. And there are some cheaper deals as well. But there's all sorts to look at, starting at around 350, and you'll get your 5%. Oh, that is a solar kit of 60 watts. And this is where I think people begin to glaze over or get paralysis by analysis, possibly. There are so many choices. And of course, there are so many variables. What do you want to do? Do you want to be at a boiler kettle, or do you just want to charge up a few battery power packs? That's what we're talking about here, isn't it? Welsh Jackie is a fan of the twin fuel generator and a fixed Victron 12-volt system. Tell us more. Get a dumb phone for a £5 as well. That will still be reliant on the network, though, won't it? Okay. Let's go back to new comments that have come in. I will give you the link to Bluetti. So you're looking for bluettipower.eu basically to purchase here in Portugal, as I understand it. I'm erring on the side of Bluetti. We discovered that George Lazenby was the Welsh Bond. Of course, my place to help is San Martino de Porto. Well, that's very sweet of you, OLP. If that's the case, let me share the GoFundMe that was particularly related to. Okay, yeah, I think I've got that for you. Yeah, vamos ajudar San Martino de Porto. Okay, and let me do that for you then. If you want to do that, it's very sweet and kind of you, OLP. That's going into the chat now. The ground is totally saturated and there is nowhere for it to run off. Yeah, true. And yes, San Martino is your favorite place as well, Coach. That's sweet. Thank you. We saw you. It would bring a tear to your eye at the state of it at the moment. And to be fair, we have had shop damage, devastating for each of those individual owners. Generally speaking, as a town, we haven't been as badly hit as some places in Portugal, but it is a sad seafront to look at. It's very I was going to say it's very exposed. It was last Wednesday for sure, and quite a few traders and shops, the frontages have been damaged. And as you look up where I went into to work yesterday, there were the beginnings of terracotta tiles coming down, and we know what happens when more wind comes in, they tend to get lifted. The more you look, the more damage you see around town here in San Martino de Porto, which I'm sure is the case all over Portugal. Hola, bon dia. Keep up the good work. After the summer power cut, a lot of people started building emergency kits. Absolutely. This must be the last warning anyone needs, right, to get backed up. Chris, we chatted online during that last blackout. I reckon we could survive for about 18 months. Well done, Pete. How about an ebook on that? Or maybe a traditional paper book so we can read it if there is an Apagao again. Oh my goodness, Pete, that's awful. In UK, anything close to rivers or canals is run into them, the nearest canal for managed flow outwards. Yeah, that's I think we're using similar drainage technology here, but it's all backed up at the moment. That must be terrifying for residents. Love to all. Yeah, when you can't see an end to it, that's very depressing. Unfortunately, even if he does want to go to parties, okay, let's stay off that sort of stuff at the moment. Might speak about that at the end, actually. You can't at the moment. This storm that we've had is a metaphor, certainly, isn't it, for the geopolitical storm as well. And in a way, there comes a point when certain things are in the news where it's kind of it says something not to speak about it as much as it does to speak about it, and it's this fine balance to strike. I might say a few words on that at the end of this. The obvious news. And even just to call it news, it diminishes the whole situation. I'm going to come back. I'm going to say something about that Epstein files. What's going on with that as a world event at the moment? I do want to say something about that. I don't want to be saying nothing. I feel very strongly about it, but this isn't the time and the place right now. But I might say a few words on that at the end. To be fair, it is landlines that are the issue. The land is so saturated that the posts supporting the cables are either rotten or at interesting angles. You say there, Pete. Are people? I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? It's hard to know if anyone's having any success with a landline because no one uses them anymore. Landlines still require power they go to operate, and many are connected via a pole hung cables. Okay, so I guess not to be relied on, but maybe useful to have as another option. Okay, Jackery systems are good, but there is never enough solar with them. They're only good for very short emergencies. That's your opinion on Jackery. None of those Bluetti devices can switch on the power in your house. You can just plug in the occasional thing. They are useful if you have 5+ of them, like our friends who constantly get them free from YouTube. Have they got any for sale? If they keep getting them, if they've got a surplus of those, I'm sure there are other people who would be happy to take them off their hands. I've been off-grid cruising 15 years and love my solar system. When I move, I'm having a 12-volt system fitted. Yeah, and I think the point you're making, Pete, is that if you want a total off-grid, you need that to be powering up the whole fuse board of your house, right? Rather than just local little bits. Easier to do when you're starting and building from afresh, right, and installing in the first place. Victron are proper systems and very good for monitoring, whereas Bluetti are more backup kettle stuff. Thank you for that. All very useful. Cheers, Pete. The other thing, get a kettle and cooking utensils that can be used on a log burner. Yes, of course. A gas alternative. That's the thing, isn't it? Is to cover all the bases. Don't go deeply down into one vertical. Keep it horizontal and have options. I think that's really good advice if that's what you're suggesting there. The fuel that you can burn, wood, and a barbecue, even a gas, as well as trying to replicate electricity. Battery operated lights and batteries are a must in an emergency box, guys. Thanks, Jackie. Your counsel over at the thread that is the off-grid preparedness equipment research would be most useful, and I'm going to pop that into the chat right now. Thank you very much for all your suggestions here. If you would grace us with your presence over there, I'd be grateful. So yeah, utensils that can be used on your log burner. I was looking at rocket stoves. I think a rocket stove is a pretty good shout as well at the moment, isn't it? Especially a rocket stove with a stove top on it so that you can cook. Victron 12 volt is reliable. So Victron is a brand to look out for in that case there. On boats, we have sets of fairy lights everywhere. And those can be run from solar systems, can't they? That are self-contained, a little solar thing that you plug into a plant pot that will power up a string of fairy lights. Better than nothing. And psychologically comforting and warming as well. We have 3-phase Victron, I think is that, or Viltron system, Jackie. It is awesome. So you got 3-phase there. That's worth looking into if you're investing heavily. Bon dia to you, Sarah, as well. Carl, try finding. Well, funny you should say that, Pete. One of my victories, as it were, in the last little while is all my offcuts of wood that I've been saving, and I didn't know why, or specifically, but yeah, my bags for life full of wood offcuts came into their own. And yeah, when it comes to wood, you have to dry it, you have to store it. You can't just start burning soggy logs. Nobody likes a soggy log first thing in the morning, do they, Pete? Which is the point that you're making there. Let's pop over then to the Safe Communities Portugal coverage. Okay, this is worth looking into then. Victron, and they are amazing on the phone with advice. Get a book called 12 Volt Bible for Boats. It's fantastic. Doesn't have to be for your boat, obviously, of course, there. So 12 volt systems, Victron, good to know. Thank you very much. Bluetti, Jackery, Victron, some of the names you might look at, as well as Starlink as an alternative to your internet supplier. Very quick look at the Portugal resident front page before we look at Facebook and Safe Communities Portugal. The front page then of the resident, they are looking at that possible landslide over in Lamego, or up in Lamego for me. Imminent threat of a major landslide has led to the closure of the A24. That's another thing, expect road closures. Stay at home if you possibly can. Both directions between the Val de Jain and Lamego junctions in Vezio district. So A24 closure. Despite the situation, those who feel strongly about the solar project, isn't it ironic? We're talking about preparedness and solar on an individual basis. On a corporate level, hundreds travel to Lisbon to protest the Sophia solar project in the Beira Baixa. There is a meeting today of Extraordinary Council of Ministers. Let's hope they can be extraordinary and do some great work as public servants for the country. They're meeting to discuss catastrophic situation in various municipalities where the state of calamity persists. Possible situation, evacuation of Coimbra. That is quite a small headline in relation to what that might mean. Thank you, Pete, you put us onto this. Aguera Dam is almost full. We're working to save lives, says Mayor. Has that clicked through for you? Yes, it has. Extraordinary. Right. Okay. Coimbra is at risk of severe flooding as a result of rising river levels. The alert has gone out this afternoon and communities are being kept informed. Now, I don't suppose any mayor would say this lightly, but I think they do need to be more specific. How do you evacuate Coimbra? It's a district, it's a city. Let's be more specific here if we can. Coimbra Mayor Ana Abrunhosa has been on television explaining that the situation will be critical between tomorrow and Monday. That means today and Monday, and tomorrow that is, and on Wednesday to Thursday, due to the amount of rain expected. The risk comes because of the fullness of the Aguiar Dam, which is releasing controlled discharges into the Mondego River. This is the problem, isn't it? Mondego already swollen, and they have to be very careful about how they're releasing water, not to cause flooding, like man-made flooding. Communities at risk into Montemor Ovelho, Sora, Coimbra and Figueira da Foz, but Ana Ambrosio stresses that the municipality is being supported by the Air Force by a drone, by GNR police, all controlling the river levels and keeping an eye on that. So that's it. The dam supplying, that's a picture of the Mondego there, isn't it? Swollen to the banks there. And yeah, so a concern about evacuating some people who will be close to possible flooding in Coimbra. I think that that's a terrible headline, isn't it? Or a quote anyway, a possible situation of evacuation in Coimbra. If you have anything about the specifics of that, I think that'll be very useful and enlightening and calming to people in the Coimbra district when they hear their district being mentioned like that. That evacuation is going to be a whole lot more specific, but certainly a situation to keep an eye on there. Thank you to Natasha Don at the Portugal Resident. Be talking to her again next Friday with her news review. Yeah, this is the lady I was talking about before. Bless her. She just looks terrified with this. The Maria Lucia Amaral facing the press there, the Minister for the Interior. Right, just finally then, let's finish this morning with the Safe Communities notice. Remember, we used to go a lot to Safe Communities Portugal during the pandemic, states of emergency and calamity. Okay, the book, the Bible for Boats covers a complete and also independent wiring and electric system, totally off-grid. Thank you. In some places during a power cut, the water tower stopped pumping. It's true, which is annoying. Solar is my next major works project. That protest was very impressive yesterday, especially as all trains were cancelled from our region to Lisbon, campaigning against the big solar farm aberration. Abomination in Beira-Baja. Guys, you may want to consider independent water tanks with 12-volt pumps and a filter. I would use Gen 7, but not cheap. Having emergency water is a must. Or your own wells, but be careful with water and sewage plant outages of waste and drinking water can mix, especially at the moment when there's flooding. Yeah, well said, Pete. If there's a water system issue, toilets may not work. A compost or porta potty is great for emergencies. Good work, everybody. Thank you for all your input. Much appreciated. Let us then go to, don't forget about tempestadasos.com. That's a good resource. I shall put that, repeat that into the chat and bring onto the screen now. Safe Communities Portugal. Have a little bit of a scroll through what they're talking about. That Tempestad SOS, that's going into the comments now. And over on Facebook then, Safe Communities Portugal, who were go-to resources during the pandemic, very helpful, generally speaking. Definitely all about the emergency, the gloom and doom, the worst things that are happening for Portugal. This is where you'll find it all focused. 37 minutes ago, it's time for prevention. In the face of increased risk of flooding in Baja Mondego, a meeting was held today at the Municipal Council of Montemor Ovelho, which brought together the mayors of Montemor Ovelho, Coimbra and Sora, the sub-regional commander of civil protection, the presidents of the board of the council, civil, etc., but the notables of those areas. And this, of course, referring again to possible evacuation in and around Coimbra. Now is the time to prevent. Avoid driving in flooded areas. Do not cross flooded areas. Protect goods, equipment, and animals. Respect the road closures and follow the directions of the authorities. We are in a state of calamity. I think that will be extended to Coimbra. I think it's only in Leiria at the moment. They are keeping us up to date over at Safe Communities Portugal with weather forecasting. Yellow level rain warnings for all districts. 6 from 1500 hours, 5 from 2100 hours, reiterating the fact that periods of rain or downpours, sometimes heavy, possibly with hail and accompanied thunderstorms, are coming in this evening. Yellow level for 11 districts from 9 tonight then, and a further 3 from midnight. So we are getting whole country concern for yellow level warning of rain, possible thunderstorms tonight here in Portugal. I think that is the note to end on. Let me give you the link to Safe Communities Portugal. But batten down the hatches for more incoming inclement, serious weather this evening. Thought not to be as serious as Kristin, but be prepared, folks, tonight. Let me put that into the chat for you now. Safe Communities Portugal, and then just your last few comments here. Thank you, OLP. Be safe, you wonderful Portugal people, lovely people. Thank you, love. And Carl, state of calamity is in 60 regions. Please don't say it's just okay. Take that, scrub that from the record. It is in 60 regions, and not just Leiria. I do beg your pardon on that. So, state of calamity in force in 60 regions across Portugal. Okay, let's leave it there for today. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, this Epstein files thing, and sorry if that's an incongruous and clunky thing, but like I said, it's odd, isn't it, sometimes where things are happening where actually I want to take this off. This is nothing to do with Good Morning Portugal. This is more of a personal matter, I suppose. I just want to say here. It's not just specifically the Epstein files. It's how, as I mentioned before, that's it for GMP for our live stream this morning. Just going to let off a bit of steam now, as you might want to as well, with the kind of more bigger picture situation. And to call it news is part of the problem. This is, you know, when it's compartmentalized as news, it's kind of psychologically compartmentalizing, literally, isn't it? That it's like something we don't have to deal with if we don't want to deal with it. And you know, I guess you don't have to deal. You don't have to have your face rubbed in things that are happening in terms of world events. But I can't not speak about it. It's really bizarre to me what's happening at the moment. We have these, as well as our own meteorological emergency. Here in Portugal at the moment after Storm Kristin. We have a global political storm going on, don't we? We have what to me are looking, and I've said this before, you know, we're not strangers to talking about this here on the Good Morning Portugal show in our community, that we are going through some incredible global shifts at the moment. Bear with me a minute. Yeah, there is something going on, I would say, for humanity on a larger scale. And some things are very symptomatic of that, aren't they? You know, there is, and this hasn't been said, as far as I'm aware, among our community. And I'm talking in terms of how, you know, we are in a international storm, if you like, of a stormy situation of turbulence and transformation for humanity. There was a huge crash of gold and silver, precious metals, and we saw a bank closure in the United States, as well as all the domestic trouble in the United States. There was a big crash of precious metals and Bitcoin, I believe, yesterday, and these excuse me, all of these things are symptoms of incredible seismic shifts that are analogous with this, you know, the weather patterns and how we're being battered weather-wise. I think we're being battered emotionally and psychologically at the moment beyond the weather situation. That's why I've taken everything off the screen that's anything to do with Good Morning Portugal. This is me personally speaking about this as a member of this community and a personal set of opinions on this, and feel free to pipe up and say what you have to say, as is the way here in our community. You know, as long as you stay legal and respectful, I think we can pride ourselves on having different opinions and robust opinions. But I really don't get it how we are, you know, one big part of the storm, the information storm, and the psychological war on our consciousness, if you like, are these so-called Epstein files, where apparently I saw figure 3 million, 6 million. Let's go with 3 million pieces of paper in an investigation that's been going on for years, and all that's resulted in. And incidentally, when I looked up 6 million, I asked Grok, going back to the space Nazi, not my words, but again, this is all part of this, you know, this ideological war that's going on, that is the front end, that is symptomatic of something that's deeper, that I think is going on for all of us, and why we need to stick together and stay connected as best as we possibly can on the highest level for our future good and for our future benefit. Let's not get hacked down by these low-level ideological battles that are just killing people literally around the world. Now's the time to rise above it. If ever there was a time to rise above it, this is the time to rise above it. And this huge symptom of a world in which we've believed that is proving itself to be not only illusory but absolutely disgusting. The thing that we've put our trust in is falling apart in so many ways before our eyes. Market crash is one aspect of that, but politically, and the people involved in politics and entertainment are supposedly being exposed. Yet what we have with this reporting and this latest sort of bilge pump of documents, and to give you some perspective on this information that's been collected for many years now behind the scenes, that you would have thought would have brought down any civilization or its political machinery, with the sort of things that are being talked about and the people that are involved. 6 million documents, if there are that many, are as high as the Eiffel Tower. That many documents constitutes between 7,500 and 10,000 books of information. So how is it that you have, with all of that information available, of all these despicable and disgusting acts that humans are being, we're being told are capable of? We're talking about high level public officials and people in entertainment, the people who you've been brought up to look up to, and the people who you assume are running the world, and the people who you assume might have values worth, so in the world of entertainment, values worth modeling. These are role models for people, aren't they? And it turns out that perhaps some of them have been involved in the most despicable and disgusting acts imaginable to man. How is it that with such a long investigation and so many documents that might be as high as half an Eiffel Tower, or 7,500 or 10,000 documents, that we just have one woman in prison, the main perpetrator killing himself or suicided in prison, and no arrests or justice? Lots of victims who have come forward to speak of the situations they were in with these other people, none of whom seem to have been arrested or publicly shamed, humiliated, or brought to justice. This is the most bizarre, strange. There was a word I could use that is not appropriate to use at this time of day, but it is a head mangle, isn't it? It is almost a psyop in its own, a psychological operation in its own right, that is twisting your psychological melons to breaking point. And whichever way that breaking point happens, it's going to be, this is a psychologically difficult time, I think, for us. And if you're in Portugal, you've got this physical storm going on as well. I suppose what I'm saying is we need each other in the face of such a disgusting and awful proposition, which is either being used to disturb and disrupt and separate people in its own right, or is true, and if it is true, will have the most devastating consequences for human beings of this so-called civilization. And how we deal, God only knows how we deal with that en masse. And that's the proposition. I think that's where we're at. We are being led to the edge of how we deal with that, whether or not, or how any of the allegations are true. We are being brought to that being a possibility within our consciousness, and what that means to us as human beings, and how we relate to each other, and how we run the world, which to me suggests that how we run the world is not sustainable, is not working, and that is falling apart in front of our eyes as we speak. And we have to manage that process on a physical level, and perhaps more to the point, a psychological level. Now, forgive me for going into that. I'm not calling it a rant. It's not a rant. It's just a need to speak about that, and to give a space for others to speak about that, because I just think it's the most extraordinary, challenging, bizarre, and disgusting situation we find ourselves in. So I'm opening the door to that being spoken about and let's see what you're saying here. We've all suspected that there was a group of people, one might call them elite, who believed they were above the law, but we didn't really have the evidence. We do now, perhaps. But what are we going to do about it? The point, part of the point I'm making, Ian, is that if that is the case, this is how the world has been run, is being run, and we are still putting our trust in those people to a great extent. And even if it's not those people directly, it's not as if the people who know them and who've inherited or associated with them are calling out. You know, if any of you did the things that are being spoken about, I would hang you out to dry. I wouldn't like, oh, you're my mate, I'll cover for you. That would be it. That would be a red line. Where are our red lines at the moment? We've crossed them, and yet the world, despite local circumstances, we're dealing with a blooming storm here. Let's say we clean up the storm and the symptoms of the storm, we go back to relying on this disgusting, toxic system that is running the world without any sense of justice for the things that we're hearing about. It blows my mind. Just a further comment. I've always been impressed by the way, Carl, you managed to keep a variety of opinions within the civilized conversation. Big up. Yeah, this will be the biggest test of that ever. And you can hear, I'm sure, my hesitancy and efforts to articulate this, but I can't not speak about it. And I don't think, I'm pretty sure I can't speak about it in a way that is fully expressing the sense of outrage or challenge I have about this personally. Look at the facts. Yeah, and then what? Don't just apply the. I'm not having a go at you, Chris. I'm just saying, what now? What do we do with this? What are we going to do? Absolutely, Chris. I taught 20 years of critical thinking A-level at the best schools in the UK, and COVID has shown me how often the masses have a silent. Okay, well, to me, Pete, it was preparation. It was a test. It was an intelligence test. But good rank. Okay, thank you. Solar boat. No, hello, Matty. What have you just walked into? It's not the Good Morning Portugal show anymore. It's Carl Munson. I'm getting a few things off his mind. No, I don't think so. We'll use the inside of an IBC if really needed. It's coming at a different part of the conversation, I think. Start by not seeing the PS Melania movie. Boycott it. Yeah, I mean, by all means, do what you think you need to do. But we are, and that's why I specifically chose to talk about these things as symptomatic that we're experiencing. If you begin to consider the causes of the symptoms, it actually addresses, I think it addresses the structure of our way of being in the world. And that is psychologically very difficult. And we will need to help each other and support each other with that. It's going to go beyond whether you think, it's right to get vaccinated or not. It really is. Like I say, the pandemic was a test, and it's very successfully split people in half. Externally, people lost friends and family, whether it's what's going on politically in America, whether it's Brexit, whether it's pandemic vaccinations, etc. These things split people outside. And now what we're looking at, I think, is the split inside, is how you kind of look in the mirror and you see that some of what you believe, some of the structure you've inherited in growing up, that is mirrored outside as a political system, as an educational system, as a health system, is actually deeply flawed and structured. It has within it is in essence corrupt, but it's what we grew up with. We didn't know any better. And now that is being brought front and center into our faces potentially to consider and cope with. So I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is we are now moving from symptomatic, dealing with symptomatic challenges and going into an actual causal matter. This is about our consciousness. This is about how we see the world. This is about how we structure ourselves and our personalities and our identities. And that is, I'm not going to say that's under threat, but it is in the spotlight. That is going to be deeply challenged. It is being deeply challenged as we speak. That's what we're going into. Melania movie. No, when is Stephen King? He's a funny bugger. But anyway, let's not get personal. One of the most depressing things of the last 10 years or so is the feeling of helplessness. We don't know what's going on. We know what's going on is wrong, but have no clue as to what to do. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a comfortable or pleasant feeling. And it's not what you would hope, is it? As grown-ups, this is what I'm writing about in my Portugal resident column. I don't know if it's going to get published, but the headline, to give you a heads up, the headline of my article this week, and I've been very lucky. I've never had one pushback. This might be the one. And I write about a very broad range of things. This week it's about keeping mementos and stuff. It's very personal and very sort of sentimental. And this week coming is called "The Grown-Ups Have Left the Building." So these people and structures that we've looked to and are a reflection of our own structures are falling apart in front of our very eyes. Not just falling apart out of concrete and metal fatigue and rust, but because they are absolutely toxic and disgusting, possibly, potentially, and the people who run them to the core. And that's what that's what my, I suppose, bottom line of my share here this morning is that on the one hand, we're being split apart as people on what we think about these issues, and we've seen it, and we've fallen out with each other, and we've managed to keep going. But beyond the falling out and the external and the symptomatic stuff is a causal struggle, a causal challenge, a structural consciousness challenge where we really do need to look after ourselves and each other in the face of that. I guess that's the bottom line. That's what I'm trying to say here. And thank you for persisting with me, for your forbearance in this matter as I've attempted to articulate. Because sometimes it's only possible to work it out by saying it out loud. Interestingly, and that's the problem, isn't it? When you start to say it out loud, you end up in an argument potentially, and that's definitely what we've seen. People sometimes when they're saying things, they're just trying to work things out. They're not trying to belittle you or beat you with their opinion, although that goes on as well, because people get scared, and that's another structure we're used to, isn't it? It's domination of other people. That's not helping. It's not working. It's not going to get us anywhere. We see what happens when people get dominated, and that's scaled up to the most disgusting levels. Now is not the time to dominate anybody. Now is the time to hear what people have to say, and that hearing what people say in the first instance is the beginning of connecting with their humanity, as repulsive as it might be to you, and as the first dirty water's coming out the hose pipe, on a hot day. That, I love that analogy, where you haven't had a hose pipe on for a while on a summer's day, and when you open it, it's old water, it's warm water, it's not the fresh stuff that you want to refresh yourself and your garden with. That's what happens, I think, now that people are talking to each other. You're getting dirty water, dirty warm water at first, but we have to hear each other out, and bear witness to each other in I think the challenge and the struggle that's right in front of our eyes. And we can keep pretending nothing's wrong if we want to, and we do, and that's part of maintaining your mental health. But something's occurring that's, I think, going to overwhelm that, just like the dams that we're looking at. That's a good metaphor. What we're holding back by pretending everything's okay and holding on to ideas that don't really serve us is going to be overwhelmed by something much bigger. Yes, they really did make that movie. Let's have a look. Okay, there's a few more of your comments, because of course, let's, in this space, in this particular part of this live stream this morning, like I say, I don't want to shut anyone down. I want to hear what you've got to say. I have the luxury of criticizing public transport every day. It is a luxury, but some communities don't have public transport. However, I don't criticize the NHS. Okay, Jeff Bezos funded the whole vanity project. Apparently, if you like hats and handbags, it's a cool car. This is the Melania movie. Brett Ratner is definitely in the files and a sex offender. Okay, well, I have to be careful. I don't doubt it or necessarily promote that. I don't know. I don't know who is being named and shamed here. We have to be careful, but believe me, if anyone is proved to be a sex offender, a paedophile, or any of these disgusting things that are happening, I've so little tolerance for such people. and I can't let my emotions get the better of me with that. But I just suffice to say, I don't know how there isn't justice being served and being seen to be done at the moment, and that is a big part of this problem, isn't it? It's disgusting enough what's being alleged, but the fact that nothing is happening to bring people to justice gives us gives me the most horrible feeling of like, well, is this how this system works? God Almighty, how can this wrong be brought into the light? How does that happen? Or is the system we live in and have grown up with so rancid in its own right that it's not even possible for that to happen? And if that is the case, good God, where are we? I spent time with a young NHS doctor over the last few days. The pressure they're under is immense. No one that works in the service deserves criticism. Good on you, Chris. Yeah, and the NHS, I'm not going to criticize the NHS, but I just think it's another symptom of how it can't work, can it? It doesn't matter how much money you chuck at that thing. Its premise is wonky and questionable, that we don't take responsibility for our health, and we just rock up at a building full of other human beings and say, fix me. That's, well, I mean, I'm going off on a very particular tangent there, and this is the problem, isn't it? It becomes a problem of argument. I'm not wishing to provoke an argument with anybody, but I think we have to have the courage to see if something isn't working, why is that? Not to win a debate about it, but okay, is this really working? Is this the right way to do this? And like I said, how we look at education, how we look at health, how we look at politics, they're all crumbling edifices at the moment. And this is why they're under pressure, I think. And this is why they don't work, is because they're structurally inappropriate or dysfunctional. Thank you, OLP. Right back at you. Saw a meme yesterday that the only people buying tickets for the Melania movie were the led by donkeys filmmakers who want to give it a panning. I think the best thing to do is just not watch it, right? It's perhaps it's a big distraction. I think it's the least of our worries, quite frankly. As long as Melania is busy making movies, that's that's probably the best thing. The issue is training is very expensive and there's no obligation to stay in the system. Hence, yeah. And again, that's very symptomatic level stuff, isn't it, Pete? And we do have to look now at why they're trained, what they're being trained. It's back to basics time. It really is. This is a dysfunctional, unsustainable system. That's not a criticism of anyone in it necessarily. Although, I mean, let's not gaslight ourselves. There are some arseholes in the NHS, and there are people who are making loads of money out of the NHS who are continuing to make the most of it for their own selves. Corruption. It's not a perfect thing, is it? It can't be. It can't be. And I think we have to have the bravery to look at all of these systems and to see whether they're serving us in the best possible way, to start the conversations. I don't think we're going to settle everything this morning on this impromptu conversation. It's a slavery protocol, Carl. Human beings are considered less than, which means they are considered a tool. They are treated less than human. Where is the light to cleanse this Epstein for? Well, we are, like I say, my article this week is the grown-ups have left the building. You can't assume that anyone else is doing this on your behalf now. We are the grown-ups we've been looking for. And, you look in the mirror and you think, who's that old giffer in the mirror? Well, that's me. And when I was young and looked at people of my age, I thought they were running things. We run things, Chris. We have to run things. We can't assume anyone else is doing it, because that is becoming foolish now. I'm sat in confusion. Why would Mrs. Trump have a movie made? She's because she can. Well, Jackie, she's got a wealthy husband who will indulge her. Which husband doesn't like to give his missus nice gifts? If I could give Mrs. Emma a movie budget, I would. I think it was on Insta somewhere. You'll probably find it. No one can find anything on Instagram. That's how they keep you busy and distracted, Coach. Many people who worked on the so-called documentary don't want to. That's hilarious. And a fun note to end on a very meaty thing that I've thrown you. I mean, to me, it's existential. To be coping physically with a storm in Portugal is one thing, but to me, what we're going through as a species, as humans in this time in history, is no less daunting, challenging, and disruptive than Storm Kristin. This is a Storm Kristin of consciousness, quite frankly, at the moment. Now you can see. Okay, I can, but beneath the anger and the ideological split are human beings wanting the best for each other and a world that works, Chris. We have to apply ourselves to the bigger issue of creating a world that works, as Buckminster Fuller once said. As long as you keep fighting with people who you're judging as less than you because they have a different opinion, we can't move the world on, I don't think. And that's not singling you out for. That's my opinion about your opinion there, Chris. Should have done easy to look at. Well, for some of us, Melania is easy on the eye, but that's not to say she should have her own documentary film. Oh my goodness, the sublime and the ridiculous, and the absolute, biggest issues and challenges facing humanity that could ever be faced right here on this transmission this morning. Yes, prayers, love to all friends in Portugal. Bring it back to the reason we started this morning. Thank you again, honestly, for your forbearance on this matter. Take care, stay well, and we shall see you again tomorrow. And I'll just press the stop button there because I don't necessarily want what I've just said to be Good Morning Portugal stuff. That was very much me in this last 20 minutes. Take care. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao.